Was there a eureka moment or a moment that put you over the edge and said to yourself, when you said to yourself, Ryan was never abused by Jerry Sandusky? Can you recall when you went over that threshold to realize, oh my God, this didn't really happen?
I started reading that book and just not even.
You're talking about Mark Pendergrass's book, The Most Hated Man in
Yes.
America.
Yes. Chad told me about that book. I appreciate this book because it's not like some guy's opinion of it. It's like the actual facts of everything that they don't put in the news. We heard all the news stories. Mike McQueary saw somebody in the shower, and all these victims, but didn't really hear what actually transpired, how they got all the testimony, how every single person initially said this man didn't molest them, and how they interviewed over 600 people from the Second Mile camp. Everybody said the same thing. He's a great guy. He never did anything. But the law of averages, you're going to interview enough people, you're going to find somebody who might say something that you want them to say. The whole way they interviewed people, it was so obvious that none of that stuff actually happened. And as I read it and realizing that, like, this guy is innocent, none of this is true. All of these, guys were either given information or what story they should have said, or they came up with a story, or the therapist helped them find a story, but none of it is true. And then, like, oh my God, what Ryan said isn't true. He lied. He straight up lied about some guy who's innocent. So it really blew my mind. It's still hard for my head. Like, I can't even wrap my head around it, to think that he could do something like that. Cause that, I think, is just so evil.
Now that's really interesting to me because you came at that from the opposite direction that I would have thought. I would have thought, and that was implied in my question, that you would have come to the conclusion that Ryan was not abused and then decided to look into the rest of the case and realized via Mark Pendergrass's book, oh my God, this is all bullshit. This guy is innocent. It sounds like you came from it slightly from the opposite direction, where you had suspicions about Ryan. You didn't trust his story. Nothing's making sense. You investigate it because Chad tells you about Mark Pendergrass's book. You realize, oh my God, all these other people are clearly lying. That means that Ryan is lying, which, by the way, is what our entire philosophy and strategy was with Ryan, was to try to convince Ryan that everyone else is lying. So therefore you can give up your bogus story too. I find that very interesting. Did I describe your thought process accurately?
Yeah. Cause honestly, when I like heard that he was recanting and all that, I did not think he was telling the truth. I still really believed that something happened. I thought that, especially finding out that he was with Frank Parlato, I was like, oh my God, he really is brain damaged and he is going to do this. I really think he's doing this for money. He's just saying that nothing happened to him. Frank must have promised him money or something, and this is the only reason he's saying that. I really believed that. I did not believe that he was telling the truth this time. But after reading that and actually seeing the facts of the case, like, oh my God, this guy is innocent, which means that Ryan lied. And then now I look back at everything and how it all transpired. It's like, this is complete insanity. I can't even believe it. But I believe it. I believe that Jerry Sandusky is innocent. I think Ryan straight up lied. Nobody pressured him to say anything. He said exactly what he was going to say. They gave him the information because he didn't have any of that before he went in for that ridiculously long interview with Joe McGettigan and them. So they must have gave him whatever information he needed. No one pressured him. I'll say he did get cold feet right before, I think it was like 2 days before the trial. And we were supposed to go in and he was freaking out. And he said he couldn't do it. He didn't want to do it. And I told him, okay, then you don't have to do it. I said, this is your life. You don't have to, believing him, stand in front of, this man who molested you. You don't have to do anything. I'm pretty sure the prosecution got enough people they can testify. You don't have to do it. And he called whoever it was, I think it might have been Joe or whatever, and told him that he wasn't going to testify. And they brought us out there and convinced him to testify, and then he did. So maybe that was about as much pressure as it was, but he had already had his story and whatever he was testifying to. So that was, nobody pressured him into saying anything. That was it.
Wow, Jasmine, that's new information.
Yeah.
I guess it just kind of came into your memory because I had previously asked you about that trial period and what you remembered, and I
Oh yeah,
understand
you did.
why it would be cloudy. But now all of a sudden you have this very distinct memory that, without any, I didn't give you any repressed memory therapy, did I?
No.
Just to be clear, that you now remember something that's extraordinary. That a couple of days before the trial, you are positive that Ryan told you, I am not going to testify, that he gets cold feet, and that Joe McGettigan, he calls Joe McGettigan, you think, and then McGettigan does what? McGettigan comes to you guys, or has you guys come to him, or what happened?
So yeah, I didn't forget this. I just wasn't even thinking about it when you asked me that. But yeah, I had to be 2 or 3 days before the trial when he told me he couldn't do it. I want to say he called Joe McGettigan or one of the detectives. And he told them straight up, I can't do it. And they said, well, before you make that decision, let's talk. They sent a detective or somebody out to pick us up. And I remember that trip. It was such a long trip. I got so sick. I was, I think, like 3 months pregnant. And I had the worst nausea. The poor guy had to pull over on the side of the road 4 or 5 times on this ride because I also get car sick. So it was like the worst 3.5 hours of my life. And I was so sick, and we got up there, and he spoke to whoever he spoke to, whether it was Joe McGettigan or whatever detectives. I believe Joe was there, and they convinced him, to do it. And then when he came out, he said, I'm going to still testify. And I said, okay.
Do you know,
we're gonna do
how
this.
they can, do you know what they said to him to convince him to testify?
I was not in the room with them. I was hanging out with this really nice lady who was like a victim advocate person. She was there during some of the other interviews.
And so did the trial begin like the next day, or do you remember?
It was like the next day or 2 days later. It was literally a couple of days before the trial.
And did they put you up in a hotel?
I think they did. I believe they did.
You don't remember the nature of the hotel, do you?
That's a good question.
I'm just wondering whether or not they upped the ante on the accommodations to make sure that you guys didn't escape.
No, I think they did put us up in a place, because I remember staying in a hotel in State College. We weren't living up there at the time, so they came and got us. So I believe they had us stay there so we wouldn't have to.
Okay.
Be going back and forth.
I think you can understand, especially in retrospect, why I find that story to be very, very telling. That is consistent with what I think happened with Ryan the first time he spoke to a detective. I think he got cold feet, and that's why he gives the rather mundane, benign story of the swimming trunks and the hand on the thigh or the knee while driving, which is really not even close to sexual abuse. So the exact same thing happens when it comes time for trial. He's ready to bail, and who knows what Joe McGettigan told him at that point. Boy, I'd love to know what changes his mind, because that would have been a huge black eye for the prosecution if one of their 8 accusers had bailed out at the last minute. So thank you for remembering that story. To me, that is incredibly telling. We have like 7 or 8 data points here that in a rational world are basically smoking gun pieces of evidence. There's no possible way that Ryan Rittmeyer is telling the truth, and you've been convinced of that through a variety of methods. By the way, just for the record, since I have a huge philosophical problem with the way that Frank has tried to essentially suborn or manipulate Ryan into a true recantation. I know that sounds like a crazy thing, but I do think you can inappropriately try to get someone to tell the truth, which is what Frank is trying to do. He's trying to get Ryan Rittmeyer to tell the truth. And I understand, especially at this stage of the case where, and Frank has even used this terminology of throwing a Hail Mary. I get that, but you can't throw a Hail Mary from an illegal formation, because they're going to call back the play even if you score the touchdown. And I think that Frank has done numerous things here that are very, very, very problematic regarding Ryan. Just to be clear, I have not signed you to a documentary contract, have I, Jasmine?
No. I don't want to do a documentary. I really don't.
Okay. And you've not been living with me at all, correct?
Oh my God, no.
And you and I aren't dating, are we?
Oh my God, no.
Okay. I just want to make it 100% clear that you're doing this interview and telling the truth simply because you really strongly believe that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what I could do to help, but when I came to the conclusion, and I really did, that this man is innocent, I'm like, what are we gonna do? How do we get this guy out of prison? Like, I mean, oh my God, like somebody's got to do something. I don't know what I can do, but I mean, if
Now, let me ask you
telling
this,
my
Jasmine.
story
Let me ask
helps
you
in
this.
some type of way, then I'll
Let
do
me
that.
ask you. Let me ask you, Jasmine. If Jerry Sandusky gets an evidentiary hearing from this latest appeal, which I don't think he will, because I don't think he's going to get a fair shake in Pennsylvania, but if by some chance there is an evidentiary hearing, and I don't even know whether or not you would have been eligible or not, because maybe would have to be a new filing. But would you be willing to testify on Jerry Sandusky's behalf? Because I frankly think that what you said here today is more helpful to Jerry Sandusky's case than what Ryan Rittmeyer has said, even in his recantation. So would you be willing to do something like that?
If I was called to testify to whatever, sure. I mean, I don't see why not. All I can say is what I know and what has happened. I speak the truth. I do not lie. I don't like lying. I can't lie. I really am incapable of it. I'm a crappy liar. So if whatever I have to say could potentially help him, sure, I would feel grateful to do that.
And last question, what would you say to Jerry Sandusky if you had the opportunity to send him some sort of a video or voice message?
I would hope that everything works out for him. It's heartbreaking to think that he seems to have dedicated his whole life to helping kids, and now he's sitting in jail accused of doing like the worst thing to kids. And I was married to one of them, and I defended Ryan all these years. I love Ryan so much. I still love him. I'll always love him. I hope everything works out for him, really. But I mean, this man is so old, and he seems like such a sweet person, and he's sitting in prison. He's probably going to die there with people thinking that he's a pedophile. And that's devastating. And I really hope that he could get some kind of a new trial, and somebody will tell the truth somewhere, get a conscience, and be like, I lied, because I mean, my God, how do you live with yourself? No wonder Ryan is such a miserable human being, because I mean, he knows what he did. He lied, and he just needs to just come forward and just say the truth. And everybody really should. I really hope the best for him, because I really believe that he's innocent, and that's so unfair for him to be sitting in there while all these guys got to be out here with their dream cars and ruining so many people's lives. And this poor man is sitting in there rotting away. I really hope he gets out.
Jasmine, I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people in this case. Almost all of them have ended up being liars or cowards or somewhere in between. I can't think of anybody for whom I have more respect in all of that large group of people that I've spoken to than you. You have been tremendous. You did a great job in this interview. You are clearly telling the truth. Your heart is clearly in the right place. You have no self-interest in participating in this at all. And you've been through an extraordinarily excruciating, difficult experience. And I thank you for enduring that and still being willing to tell me the truth, because I know most people in your situation, especially after we spoke on the phone, and I've told you this, most people after I speak to them on the phone, they think they've already done their good deed, and they don't go on the record. And you went the extra effort to go on the record. I know that wasn't easy for you. You did a fantastic job, and I really, really appreciate it. And I know a lot of people who care about the truth in this case really appreciate it as well. So thank you so much, Jasmine, for what you did here today.
Oh, you're so very welcome.